should wait for 2 more minutes because I know the people are...
So a very late good morning to you, Dr. Koul, and a good afternoon to all the participants in India. I'm Sam, and I welcome you all to the Fireside Chat organized by the Tech Transfer Office at KIT TBA, Bhubaneswar. Today we have with us Professor Anil Koul, and he would be shedding light on the topic transforming technology into leads, a path to discovery. Now, before we engage ourselves in this lively session, I would like to say a few words about the Institute KIT TBI and the Tech Transfer Office at KIT TBI. So KIT TBI started back in 2009 as an initiative of Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology with the humble support of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and is led by Dr. Mrityunjay Swar, who's the CEO and the Director General R&D for KIT University. KIT TBI has always strived to boost the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the country and has become the epicenter for technology startups and entrepreneurs in the eastern and northeastern regions of India by creating impactful, innovative, and successful enterprises. KIT TBI was the recipient for the National Award for Technology Business Incubator of the Year in 2017. Following the success, KIT TBI has also received the Center of Excellence tag in Incubation and Entrepreneurship by DST Government of India, and has been ranked the #1 bioincubator in the private sector by Biospectrum in 2019 and 2020 consecutively. The Technology Transfer Office, on the other hand, is an initiative by BIRAC, the National Biopharma Mission. All the Northeast states, as well as Odisha and Chhattisgarh, come under the jurisdiction of the Tech Transfer Office at KIT TBI. Briefly, the Tech Transfer Office scouts for technology, evaluates them, helps in technology development to increase the technology readiness level, provides IP protection facilities, and eventually facilitates the transfer to the right industry partners. Or in other words, we facilitate licensing. Now, having introduced briefly about the Institute, I would like to say a few words about the guest for today's chat series, Professor Anil Koul. Professor Anil Koul is currently Vice President and the Head of Discovery Research at Global Public Health Pharma Unit of Johnson & Johnson, and also Adjunct Professor of Translational Discovery at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. His lab primarily focuses on tuberculosis translational medical research. He is also a member of Board of Directors at Janssen Pharmaceutica NV, Belgium, which is a European subsidiary for Johnson & Johnson, and is also a scientific advisory board member for CSIR, Government of India. Professor Koul has received his PhD from Max Planck Institute of Biochemistry, Germany, back in 2001, and he holds more than 20 patents to his credit. He has played a pivotal role in the discovery and development of bedaquiline, which we would hear later in this talk, and was awarded with several awards throughout the years for his contribution to the discovery of bedaquiline and TB research. Bedaquiline is the first drug to be approved in the last 45 years for treatment of drug-resistant tuberculosis. Till date, bedaquiline has reached to more than 200,000 patients across 131 countries and is on WHO's list of essential medicines. Professor Koul has more than 20 years of experience in drug discovery and translational clinical development, as well as in broader public health research innovation and R&D, and is bestowed with many awards, including the Sun Pharma Research Award and the Johnson Medal. Back in 2020, he was awarded the coveted Heroes of Chemistry Award for discovery of bedaquiline by American Chemical Society. I would also like to welcome the moderator for today's chat show, Dr. Mrityunjay Swar. He's the Director General for Research and Development at the KIT University and also the CEO for KIT TBI. He's also the man who has built a platform with a vision and mission to transform the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in the east and northeast of India. Now, without further ado, I would request Swar sir to say some introductory remarks and to take the session forward. Dr. Swar.
Good. Thank you, Sam. So let me first welcome Dr. Anil Koul. I know him as one of the outstanding researcher who talks about translational science and also thinks about social impact. I think you'll hear about what he has done so far and what are vision plans. Before that, let me introduce Dr. Anil Koul's work, and all of us, we know the country takes pride in that. And he was also recently formerly the director of IMTech Chandigarh. He is going to speak about briefly on TB drug development, the discovery and challenges of bedaquiline. And this is an interesting drug which has come now, and he's the main inventor of that. And Professor Call's research has enhanced our understanding of the science behind the mycobacterial energy metabolism and drug discovery for tuberculosis and other serious virus and bacterial infections. And his research on intrinsic drug resistance, efflux mechanism, novel antibiotics classes have been important to address the issue of increasing antibacterial resistance. So today you're going to hear from him the title called Innovations in TB Drug Discovery. Especially, he's going to focus on his drug, bedaquiline. And then after this, Dr. Call's brief presentation, we'll go for a Q&A, so chat session with him, a couple of interesting questions we'll be discussing on that, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So now it's Dr. Call's, you present your PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, KIT TBI. Thank you, KIT students, faculties, and everybody for giving me a chance to present today. To be honest, I have been associated with KIT for last few years, and I see an amazing institution. An institution which is very much grounded in terms of making that social impact. And that's why I loved my stay and my presence whenever I could go and visit Professor Saur and the team at Bhubaneswar. It's an amazing feeling whenever I have been there, and also being associated with the TBI. And as I have interacted with the scientists at TBI, the vision and the mission to transform the east and the northeast part of India is really amazing. And the students, I have given a kind of an inaugural talk once at the School of Biotechnology, and the aspiration and the energy and the desire to excel among the KIT students has been really remarkable. So I congratulate actually the leadership of KIT. I congratulate Professor Saur, congratulate the entire team of TBI who are doing an amazing job in terms of getting these new startups, these new companies, new ideas, and incubating them and giving them the space to fly in what we call biotechnology or healthcare sector. So you guys are doing a very good job, and I just wanted to thank you for all what you are doing upfront before I go into my talk. So my talk, as Professor Saur said, that this was supposed to be a chat, but then we ended up with few slides, and those few slides went from 5 to now I think around 5 or 10 we have that. So I will quickly go through. It's not to go through the science, and Professor Saur told me that maybe we should see what is the impact, because that impact is more important than the science, what we do, the social impact. How does our discoveries and our science lead to an everlasting impact on a human society, on a human race, and our countries? So I start with this this quote. I like it very much because in the end, I'm a discovery scientist. I love discovery. I love the field of basic biology, basic translational research, and to see how those discoveries eventually get transferred and transformed into products and new product opportunities. So as someone said, I don't know who said it, but as someone said, it all starts with discovery. And it's also very important that as we discover and develop our mission and programs in discovery R&D, we take something very important into consideration. That's what Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, said once. When something is very important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in favor. So I really believe in it because most of the social problems, most of the problems in our lives are sometimes very, very difficult to encounter and to overcome. But we try our best, and to see if the odds are not in our favor, we try our best to give it our best shots. And that's what it's all about in terms of the science, and also in terms of evolving technologies, and also in terms of those startup companies, because the odds when you start up a new company, it's always not in your favor. But at the same time, when we talk about drugs, discovery, and those amazing contributions, it's a lot of serendipity which is involved in there. Particularly when we talk about pharmaceutical small molecule drug discovery, they say that it's like there's a needle in a haystack kind of a phenomenon. So I won't go into details of those discovery aspects of it, but definitely I think there's an opportunity, there is a chance, and there is also the amount of hard work which we all put in making those discoveries. So I keep on bringing this slide up in the front because I love to see how science and technology is changing the way we are living. You all have seen, particularly in medicine and healthcare, where I have worked in the last 25 years. It has been amazing, amazing evolution. We all have seen it. We have seen it with HIV, which was a death threat in 1990s, and now today we have amazing medicines, and now people are working on the HIV vaccines, and people are working on HIV cure. That means you eradicate the virus completely from the body. And same thing with this liver virus, hepatitis C was the most challenging virus even 5 or 10 years ago to treat. Now you have cure for hepatitis C. The oncology cancer has been so much benefited by what we call this targeted cancer therapy with new drugs, what we call immune therapy, basically boosting your immune system and to encounter cancer. And you have James Wilson, Professor Honjo, both getting Nobel Prize for their PDL1 story. Of course, then we have stem cells. Of course, doesn't know the CAR Ts for oncology space, and we have new drugs looking at those immune oncology CAR T programs, and also CRISPR-Is. We have, I think, last year that for the first time, two women scientists got Nobel prizes for the CRISPR-I. Jennifer Doudna and Amelia Carpenter were really pioneers in thinking around and building the CRISPR-I gene editing platform. So, of course, vaccines have been there, like Streptococcus vaccines has saved amazing lives, especially in the childhood mortality. And apart from these, we have medical technology is really booming, especially the surgery, the bionic limbs, and if you know nowadays, even how people or how technology, how surgery will eventually be performed from 10 years from now, it will be revolutionary in terms of having those robotic surgeries being performed. We as an institution are already investing heavily in those robotic surgeries, which will be minimally invasive. So things are changing in terms of the healthcare. And of course, as we all know, how as COVID has taught us the big data analytics, how big data and its applications is changing the whole field of medicine, and the digital health, of course, is a big area of focus across the whole world. And just to add to this list is the new kid in the town, which is the mRNA. I think the lady in the middle, the Kathleen Carico, she used to work. She works in BioNTech. She is the senior vice president in BioNTech, and she is the professor. She was professor in University of Pennsylvania in US, and she is one of the pioneers in terms of mRNA, thinking about how mRNA. Nobody thought about that how mRNA will basically induce such a robust immune response, because mRNA is such a short-lived molecule. Those who have worked with the mRNA, we know how labile, how easily it is degradable, and all the nucleoside modifications she did on the mRNA, and also build how do you transfect mRNA in the cells. It's been amazing in terms of what she has done, along with of course these two Turkish German couple, Dr. Urgen Sahin and Dr. Ozem Tursi. So they have been really revolutionary in terms of applications of mRNA. Now we have endless mRNA, which can produce directly proteins in your body. So there is definitely a evolution, and this is coupled to your microbiome and things like that. But when we go to disease like TB, we still are in a very difficult phase, because this is just to show you how much does a patient with MDR TB, how many pills does he needs to cure this bacterial infection? The vaccines are not there. The treatment has been very difficult. There was once a daily injection, which initially used to be there. Luckily, with advent of Bedeclin, that's not there. So there has been extremely difficult time for treatment of drug-resistant TB. So when we started the program way back in early 2000, we discovered Bedeclin with what we call a very unconventional phenotypic approach. Nobody at that time thought that this approach, I won't go in the details of the approach, but this approach will lead us identifying the drug, which eventually became Bedeclin. So this is the structure of the molecule. And then we eventually found that this blocks an enzyme which people were really skeptical. There was a Nature Medicine article which said that this cannot be the target of this enzyme. This molecule is not really blocking TB specifically, and there was a lot of press around that at that time that this is not the right molecule. But we showed that this really blocks Bedeclin, and it blocks with a very nice what we call IC50s of 2.5 nanomolar. So for the first time we showed the world that can block TB by shutting out its power supply, that is ATP production. So you kill the TB, you kill any bacteria, and you by just specifically blocking its energy source. So this is a very recent paper, which is, I just want to show you that how some early discovery changed the field. And this is a paper by a group in Canada published in Nature this year, where they showed how Bedeclin actually binds to the enzyme, this particular very complex motor, which is the ATP synthase. You can see that the gray is the C subunit where the Bedeclin binds, and it has the cytoplasmic part where you have what we call the F0 part of it, which is very hydrophilic. The rest of it's membrane bound. I will just show you this video. It's a little bit long from these guys showing you how Bedeclin basically binds. So this is the C subunit. And this is the molecule Bedeclin coming up. It blocks the interaction between the green and the gray. And the moment you block this interaction, it blocks the rotation of the molecule, because the rotation is very critical in synthesizing ATP. So this molecule actually is a motor. The more it moves, the more it synthesizes the ATP. and as you block this rotation by Bedecline, you see this yellow and the purple molecules. They bind to each monomeric units of this particular enzyme, and you block the energy synthesis, you block the rotation. So that has been this paper has been really transformational in terms of understanding at the molecular level how Bedecline really binds to its target and blocks its rotation and blocks the production. And the specificity of the molecule on this particular target has been really, really amazing. So as we go to the next slide now, so I won't go into the discovery details anymore, but I think what Mrityunjay asked me was what has been the impact. So you can see on the left-hand side is the key milestone data. So the key milestone tells you that in 2012 we had the FDA approval of this drug. In 2013 there was what we call GDF distribution through WHO, and US USAID donation program was set up. And then you had several WHO guidelines coming through, and in 2018 you had 2019 other WHO guidelines in terms of removing the injectable and the MDR TB regimen, and there were other agreements. So till now we have almost 143 countries where the drug is available, and it covers more than 90% of global TBR burden. So almost now we have almost 450,000 as I speak today, or around about half a million of people who are getting who have accessed the drug, and I think thousands of lives have been saved by application of Bedecline. So this shows you the latest data in terms of countries where the drug is available. You can see that the first approval was in the US, and eventually in 2020 you had Malaysia, Namibia, and Mongolia coming through the approvals. What's more important is the pediatric indication. You know how almost there are 1 million infections of kids with MDR TB, and 250,000 of those die. And you can see that India was one of the very early countries to get pediatric approval for Bedecline, both for indication. India was in 2015, where we got it was one of the very, very early takers in terms of giving access to its patient to this new MDR TB drug. And this shows you, I remember still when I was in this meeting in 2016 in New Delhi on the launch of Bedecline by then Honorable Health Minister JP Nadda ji. At that time, it was said that we will have it across the 6 institutions on a conditional access program. And in 2019, you had the Ministry of Health giving a notification to almost 500 drug-resistant TB centers to give approval for use of Bedecline in MDR TB populations in India. So you can see that over a period of time, how this drug has really been widely available across major MDR TB centers in India. So of course, the aim is that the story doesn't stop here, because we still want to change the treatment duration, which is still 9 months for these MDR and drug susceptible TB patients. We want to say, cannot we treat TB in 1 month or 15 days? Is it not possible to do it like any other infection we have, that you have antibiotics for 1 week or 2 weeks and we try to cure those? So that's where the whole aim is. That, and right now, as I said, that we still need around 10 to 12 pills for treatment of MDR TB. Can a future be where we can just use one pill, and for 15 days or 1 month Can that happen? So that's where the science and the technology and the evolution of the entire field is going. How do we reduce TB treatment by a very complex regimen of multiple of drugs and with a single? Because now it's possible to save MDR patients. Before that, almost 72% of XDR TB patients died. Now with Bedeclin, we have lot and lot of lives saved by this particular drug. I think that's where the innovation and science is so important in developing and reaching that goal where we can cure every TB patients or we can eradicate TB from this world. So this involves, once again, focusing on energy sources to the bacterium, basically blocking what we call energy supplies in a very synergistic manner. So now we have programs looking at different energy sources and energy levels and trying to see and deplete the energy supply to the TB bacterium. So lessons learned are very important as we develop these programs, that even when we were doing Bedeclin, at times the data looks really hopeless. I can tell you examples later that there were times when we thought that the project will really stop. So, but I think we did have that faith and perseverance and the support to keep the program going. And as I said, that when we started the discovery of this particular program, very few people believed, and there was a Nature medicine paper really criticizing that this cannot be true, this is not the right thing to do, and there was a lot of skepticism and negativity. But you have to somehow overcome that. So those who tend to be negative in the first go and then reverse their negativity and keep on saying that this is what I told you was the right thing to do. So then you have neglected diseases and diseases of global public health. They need special ways to, or what we call R&D business models have to be different. You need different kind of budgetary support, and you need different kind of way you do R&D for those kind of programs, because the financial incentives linked to those programs are very different than but the socio-economic impact is the most important thing which we have to think about. So what is also very important to remember, that pathogens, as we have seen with COVID, as we are seeing with drug resistant, not only TB, but drug resistant bacteria, they are here to stay. So TB bacterium was discovered more than 120-30 years ago by Robert Koch, but we still have resistance. We still have problem of managing TB infections across the world. It's not only India, it's not only Asia, but we have TB infections which are predominant, whether it's tuberculosis or non-mycobacterial tuberculosis. So really important to keep our R&D on infectious diseases up and alive. So this is the slide, which is basically showing a picture of a pharmacy in South Africa, where you have, you see, we just went there, while visiting the hospital, and saw this pharmacy of that particular hospital. And these BL boxes are basically Bedeclin boxes. So it was very nice to see that the research, what you do in the labs, eventually gets translated into some remote corner in the world, and you see that getting and benefiting people, because in this center, it was a XDR TB center in South Africa, and there was a lot of mortality before they introduced Bedeclin. Once again, showing the importance of the science, importance of what we all do, and how it human life in the end. I think, and this is just a slide on not only on Bedeclin, but what we are trying to do for global public health right now, or what my area of focus, apart from TB, is. So we work on tuberculosis, as I said earlier, but my team is still working on dengue, which is very, very. You have seen in UP what number of kids who had dengue infections. I think last week or a week before. So dengue is something which we have to think about very, very seriously as the climate changes, as the earth warms, that these flaviviruses, how do basically how do we treat them, because there is no vaccine, there is no treatment for diseases like dengue or dengue hemorrhagic fever and other flaviviruses. Of course, Ebola, we have seen in the last 10 years the challenge in Africa, how much Ebola has impacted. The vaccine platform is a big platform, what we are working with. And apart from these, there is also the need for mental health programs. The mental health programs, especially in the developing world, is something we have to think seriously. So apart from that, there's malaria, which is still predominant and going to increase. And there's what we are working on a program around postpartum hemorrhage and also what we call AMR. We also have some device programs, especially around fistulas. And we also have fellowship programs, and we are building up these discovery centers across the world. We also work on the technology platforms. We'll work on digital technologies, basically supporting the clinical trials. A huge push because of the COVID. What is not listed here is the COVID programs, what we are doing. This is a little bit old slide, but there's a huge COVID vaccine program, as well as the small molecule program, as you all know, around J&J. So we have data sciences, and we have platforms where we are looking at once every 6 months injections for some of the diseases like mental health. So definitely a lot of interesting, and also for HIV. But what COVID has taught us is very fundamental things. So what we realized, what one of my colleagues, Dr. Ken, he put it very nicely, that look, we before COVID came, it took years and years to develop new drugs, new medications, and develop those processes. In COVID, we were able to galvanize ourselves as team very effectively and deliver on several multiple programs in a much faster manner. As you can see, mRNA vaccines or even our own vaccines, the speed by which they got approved were really, really amazing. So we could move very fast, effectively. And if we analyze that, why was it? What did pandemic make us deliver at such an amazing speed and pace, not cutting the corners, not compromising on any quality, but delivering very effectively. So he identified what we call 6 C's. So he called it 6C concept. So what he said, that what was common in COVID is a common cause. There's and the cause is bigger than us. So bigger than the individual. So that was one thing, that we all need a common cause, which is much bigger than our own ambition, our own aspiration. If we don't address that cause, it will impact everybody. We need champions. I think that's very important, that we need champions who can, or leaders who take ownership, especially if things fail. So that's very important. We need commitment. Commitment means that, especially from everybody who is working on that particular programs, the trust from the management and the support. We need clarity, that what do we want to achieve? We want to achieve vaccine by 6 months. We want to achieve vaccine by 9 months. We want to achieve vaccine. We want to achieve small molecule therapeutics in next 6 months. So that clarity is really, really important. Of course, communication is very key. An open, honest, scientific dialogue with curiosity and communication is really important. And as we see a common thread, we also develop what we call camaraderie, that the team bonds very much, because you see an external threat and you see a common cause where our egos and our politics transcends that, and we come all closer to each other. So I found that this analysis is really, really critical, because we as human race, or we as nations, have been able to deliver so wonderfully in terms of developing these drugs and solutions for COVID across the world. I think this is also in the same line, the key that where is the driver of the innovation if we have understood the last 6 months. It's of course the internal expertise. If there were no mRNA experiments done years ago, it took 20 years for that first mRNA experiment done for cancer treatment to final application in COVID. So that incubation time for basic research is really, really important. The network of collaboration is really important, that you collaborate across the universities, across the companies, across the healthcare industry in order to deliver on something. And this is what the last 1.5 years has told us, that innovation can come from anywhere. So we have to make ourselves ready to deliver, to build on that innovation. Entrepreneurship is really important, because unless until you have structure in that problem you are going to address, or in that organization, it doesn't work. So we have seen within India also how many new entrepreneurs have emerged out of this pandemic, especially in the healthcare sector. That how health has got predominance, and how people, the private enterprises, is picking up the challenge in terms of bringing up new solutions, new tools, whether it's the diagnostic companies, small diagnostic companies, or whether it's the big pharma, like the mRNA vaccine platform and with Genova, or the DNA vaccine platform with Zydus. These are just an example of small as well as the big companies coming together to address the problem, as well as the wonderful government support we had. Operational excellence, heart and soul, leadership, and talent are, of course, key to anything. I think, and this is one of my last slides to tell you that how I have seen India evolving in the last couple of years is really, really good. It looks sometimes bleak, but we are constantly improving on our innovation rankings. And the next generation of people with the access to the technology, with the access to the know-how, they are able to bring a transformative change in terms of innovation. You see 2015 ranking, and you see in the last 5 years, we have improved almost 40-50% in our innovation ranking across the world. Now we are in the range of in mid 40s. And I think in the next 10 years, our innovation dynamics within the country will change heavily. This is the final slide. I'm very interested in SpaceX. I don't know how many of you are following the evolution of SpaceX. So it's a crazy thing to think about exploration of space and colonization of Mars. So we call it, people call it loon shot strategy. That means how to nurture those crazy ideas that win the wars, cure the disease, and transform the industries. So these are really, really loon shots, and a lot of small companies are built on these loon shot ideas that it looks crazy to the other people, it looks unachievable to somebody else, but those people who have the vision and the dedication, they deliver on these loon shots. And there are a lot of companies in the kit TBI who are working on those loon shot projects. And that's where the support, external support, is really important to help them that particular dream. So this is just to show you, the graph here shows you that this SpaceX trajectory from 2010 to 2020, the last one decade. You can see how many of these launches failed. It was the first major milestone was achieved after 9 years for this SpaceX, and you should go and try to read and see the story behind them. It's amazing how they encountered things which people, even myself, a few years ago, I said that these guys are crazy. This is never going to happen. And what's the big deal about it? It's the evolution of the technology, what they have showed can happen, and what small group of individuals can deliver, which was unthinkable 10 years ago, that space is a public enterprise. Private players cannot make any dent in their either in the technology or in the complexity of the problem. But this is what people with will, with determination, with the real goal can achieve. And you will see, I think last year you should see some of these videos on SpaceX, how they have achieved marvelous success in this field. So with that, I think I will stop here. I know I was a little bit overboard, but this will definitely give us good time to chat a little bit.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Kaul. And this is a great one. I think we have been enjoying. You made the beta-choline story so simple, crisp for all of us to understand. Okay, your video is on now. So I think it's a great story. You talked about all the perspective of how you could build it. But one question is coming from my side before we start the chat session, Dr. Kaul. J&J is a big brand, and Dr. Kaul, Anil Kaul is a brand too. Now you have been building beta-choline. A lot of power is needed, both from resources, from regulatory, from every cases. Now look, today the audience we have, most of them are innovators, early startups, scientists building something. Now, what will be your message? Because if they want to build, or let's say Dr. Kaul in India wants to build beta-choline story, how the story will be, how challenging it will be. Any message you want to give there before we start the chat session, Dr. Kaul?
Now, Professor Mrutyunjay, this is a really good question. That does the country and does the environment impact the innovation? Of course, there are enablers. There are enablers everywhere, that you need those enabling mechanisms to foster innovation. And you need that drive. But there are also in each environment, there are also situations, or there are also pulls which bring the whole thing down. So I think it's sometimes it's the leadership. It's the key. What I see is the leadership and the scientific thought. If your science is based on very strong fundamentals, and there's a huge element of truth in your discoveries, I think it eventually transcends those pulls and pushes, which we always see happening across all the programs in any organization. You have to have that strong commitment and the belief in what you are planning to do, or what you propose, or what your vision is, and that commitment from your own self is really critical.
Yeah, good. Anything, because these innovators or so-called the startups, they're also going through different phases of development, and sometimes they really stop their developments because they find resources are missing, maybe the team is not there. So Dr. Kaul, just to give an inspirational message to the participant, do you have any a case where you one day you said, oh my god, this is not happening, and you went to some sort of, call it, depression, but then you build strategies to how to overcome? Can you give a very inspirational message to the participant? Because this is what we wanted in a chat session, that you have an enabler, you could do it, but you might have faced a lot of difficulties, challenges. What was that moment you lost, and then you came up with a big boom? So that will be interesting story for us to learn from you.
Yeah, I think,
Thank you.
Mrityunjay, it happens almost every day. There are when we wake up, and there are so multiple challenges which we do. The vaccine discovery and development story is a phenomenon of its own. Every day you have pulls, you have pressures, you have disappointments. So you have to find a mechanism to keep yourself going, to have that faith, to have that belief. I can give you an example. Since we are talking about Bedeclin, I have so many other examples where a lot of these programs fail. It's not that every program, every idea clicks. I think 80% of those ideas definitely have to fail.
Oh
You need
yes.
those. You need that one or two ideas which click. Rest definitely will fail. In Bedeclin's story, when we did the first clinical trial, the outcomes, it was in South Africa. It was 2005, 2006. So we did a what we call EBA trial in 70 South African patients, and the results were not really promising because we did the trial only for 1 week, and we didn't see any change in the patients in the patients during the first 5 days, and on day 6, day 7, there was really small change. So at that time, a lot of people said that we have to stop it, we have to do this, it doesn't work. So you definitely have to. So that data is published. It's one of the journals which was where the data is published. You can have a look. So it was not really something which was out there. But I think the key was that we had strong belief that this is an aberrant data. Instead of doing it for 7 days, if we move it to 2 months, we will see that.
Great
And
strategy.
there was a lot of push not to do that, but somehow we were lucky enough to do it, and rest is all a story.
No, good, because you talked today, 2021. You're talking about how you see in 2005. Then you change the protocols, probably then you become better. So that's the learning for all the participants, because this is the development of a startup. It happens. So don't get disheartened that it didn't work. Maybe you could build a nice team and build strategies to overcome it. I think strong foundation is very, very important, and the person is very important. So Dr.
May-
Kaul,
Maybe, maybe,
yeah,
maybe I'll just to add another point. What's very important is to get validation. That
yes,
you should not have a fear of criticism. That
mhm,
if somebody is criticizing the idea, that you should seek and explore what other people might be thinking about the program. Seek that critical input, what we call. So
great,
that critical input from your key opinion leaders is really, really critical, whether it's your market strategy, whether it's your market operations, or whether it's your R&D plans. So that insight is sometimes we are not able to give, or the companies are not able to access. So for me, I think that's very, very. So you should make sure that you open your results and to people who are part of your programs, discuss with them, get their feedback, improve upon your strategy. The improvement on the strategy has to happen every day.
great.
So it's a constant change and evolution of any program.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I think that's good one, because many of us, we don't talk to many of the others. So always we are confined to our own groups. So that's a good learning for all of us. Dr. Kaul, there's one question, that you have gone through several challenges. So how do you feel? What are the challenges to translate a research discovery into a successful sort of a product or a process?
I think the biggest challenge what we have to take into account is what's the impact? Is the impact big enough to translate the product? Because translation of a product definitely takes a lot of energy, a lot of finances, and so what we call target product profiles.
Mhm.
So, what will be the impact and benefit of that particular innovation? So that has to be very, very critical in the mind of the innovator, that this is going to transform the lives. This will be something which will have a big impact. And that idea needs to be validated by your key opinion leader board or your key opinion leader
Mhm.
and the field experts. So that's something which we people have to really think about. So
Okay.
for me, I think external validation is really critical.
Okay. Great. Great. I
Not
think that's all of
always, not always. You don't have to take it seriously, but yes, if there you still have to believe yourself. But if there is external leadership and external input that helps you, I think that should be sought routinely and regularly.
great. Great. No, thank you. I think, the one more thing, because the startups are always individual or group of them, two or three, and they don't have any, all expertise which you need for this drug development. So let's say I'm asking Dr. Call, you're an individual, you were a scientist earlier, and then you started building the concept of beta-quilin. How did you build a team in due course of time? So what was the trick? How do you the strategy to build a team? Or J&J just gave you just like that, or you basically build the team?
I think you always build a team because in the end, it's the team which delivers. It's not the individual which delivers. Is the team is the most critical element of any successful program. As I said that there are those 6 C's
Yeah.
which are the most important one, and the last one is basically that the team. And if you don't have the right team, it's never going to. The team has to work towards a common goal. So how do I do it? I personally take a lot of care in terms of getting the right people on the programs. So
Yeah.
people who can think differently, people who can work together, people who enjoy celebrating somebody else's success. So honestly, I really mean it that selecting those people, bringing them on board, those people who have the right technical expertise and the heart at the right place is really, really critical.
Hmm.
Because the moment teams are not functional, no program can deliver.
That's
So
true.
so we make sure that our selection criteria for people is not only the expertise, their expertise, but also how they function in a group and in a team.
Yeah. Good. No, that's a good one. I think so. One more question to you: that how public health, and because you talked about the negative diseases, how public health and negative diseases are addressed. Basically, the critical views from India's standpoint, because you built from J&J, you landed up in India to do all these activities. Now, let's say how you would have been in India, how would you have been taken off further? So, what challenges would have been faced to
I,
promote
I think
this kind of areas? Yeah.
I think public health is as you see how we are doing it right now is we are building those partnerships with public health institutions across the world. Because public health is, as I said, that it's a non-commercial kind of an enterprise. It's not like oncology, it's not like neuroscience, which is completely different. So public health is definitely more about partnership and about collaborations. We right now are building new satellite centers across major public health institutions in the world. We are looking at several countries like Singapore, like African continent, like Asia, like South America. So idea is to build those labs which address major public health challenges and basically seek partnerships with the governments, like if you talk about dengue, if you talk about Zika, if you talk about Ebola, because this all can be done in partnership. You cannot do it on our own. The governments
Yes.
cannot do it, and the industry cannot do it. So it has to have mechanisms of that funding. It has to have those mechanisms of the expertise which lie in the institutions and things like that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I think the interest of the time, I'm not taking other questions in the chat session, but maybe Dr. Kaul, if you don't mind, can you open up the Q&A session from the participants? Because I see a couple of questions coming from the participants. If you don't mind, can I ask Sam to coordinate this?
Sure. Dr. Kaul,
Yeah.
there have been 3 questions on the chat box. I will take them sequentially. The first would be from Mr. Tanmay Naik. He asks, will monoclonal antibody-based therapy will change the course of TB treatment across the world?
I don't think personally that will do much because you have right now, the field has moved is from injectables to all oral regimen, because monoclonal antibodies may be good for certain disease like immunology and cancer and all the hospital-based infections. But all the community infections need an oral regimens because it's the ease. A TB patient who has to go to every month to get his injection in an hospital, it's a waste of his time or his or her time to be there. And most of these people are poor, so they need to earn their daily wages. So it's extremely WHO recommendations are that we need an all oral regimen. And that's what the whole field is trying to do, just to get those pills and not to have those injectables there.
Right, please, sir. Going back to the second question, this is from Ms. Swati Mishra. She has BioNTech plans to develop mRNA-based vaccines for malaria after the success of COVID vaccine. Can this be a solution to all other viral diseases on a larger perspective in the healthcare sector?
I feel that the mRNA platform has a huge potential. What we as a field have seen in terms of generating that immunity, particularly the neutralizing antibodies for COVID, is really promising. But there are definitely challenges, especially for TB and other bacterial pathogens which have intracellular, that they are not only extracellular, they are in macrophages, they hide in the lungs, so they evade the immune system as such. So for those pathogens which are evading the immune system, mRNA may not be the the best choice. But the jury is out there. Unless until we do the experiment, we don't know it. So we have to do those experiments. But the technology looks promising because it's very scalable.
Yeah.
It's the manufacturing is easy, and the time to develop it is also very fast. That's why people have been able to deliver billion of doses around the world around for this technology. Whether it works for TB and other viral pathogens, it's an open question. So we have to do the experiment.
In context with this neutralization effect, there's one question from Ms. Shruti. She says many institutions across India are taking forward the Sero survey with ongoing COVID situation, looking at the antibody neutralization effect of various vaccines. Can you share your perspective on such ongoing studies and how can it be beneficial to vaccine discovery?
Yeah, means there is so much of individual heterogeneity in the neutralization antibody response. Within the family also, you will have those amazing differences in the responses of a single given vaccine. So how do we take that heterogeneity into account when we measure those neutralizing antibodies? And it's not only the neutralizing antibodies. I think we have to be very, very careful when we say that the correlates of protection for the vaccines is just the neutralizing antibody. It's also your T cell response, which are some of those T cell responses are the long-term responses we develop. So the T cell immunity is really, really critical in developing antibody responses. So just the neutralization is not only the answer. Even if your antibody responses titers are there but waning, you still have a very strong T cell presence for some of the vaccines which is out there.
Brilliant. So just one last question from Mr. Balu Ranganathan. His question is about using data analytics for cancer therapy. Your insights on that?
Yeah, we all do that nowadays. I don't know, it's a buzzword to use data analytics, but we all, any cancer patient, I was talking to Professor Saur a few days ago, any cancer patient, we map the mutations. If you have to give a tailored therapy to cancer a patient, especially when you are using kinase inhibitors, you basically see whether your cancer phenotype mm, is resistant to those drugs, or whether your cancer cells are susceptible to those inhibitors. So in a lot of places nowadays, it's very routine to sequence the genomes of these cancer patients, to look at those mutations, to look at those susceptibilities, to look at those genes. So that data analytic part is definitely going to be more on the personalized uh, uh, aspect of any cancer therapy. So, and the bigger the data set is, the more analytics we can do, and we can do it, and then on a community level, we can do it on a global level. But the question is that for any data analytics, the main predominant question is that what is the underlying question you are going to address, or what is the underlying problem you are going to address? And that's my advice to all the startups. So please think about what is the question, or what is the problem you are going to solve. So once you have that clarity that this is, if I want to solve the supply chain issue of vada pav in Bhubaneswar, I want to give best vada pav to the people or the households, and I want to free the time in the kitchen and give that vada pav. If that works, that's the best. You have seen that that company, iFresh or something like that, and they made a big success out of it because they could deliver that technology, make it fresh, make it usable, make it scalable across all the South India. And the same thing is about healthcare. What are we going to solve? What is your target product profile? What is your target product concept? So put it down on one single piece of paper and think about it very, very fundamentally. Is it changing the lives of the patients? Is it changing the lives of somebody in the kitchen? Or is it a moonshot? Is it going to change the lives? Or is it something which everybody else think that this is a crazy idea?
That's true. That's true. Sam, if no, I have one question, because these days, I know somebody asking one more question. Dr. Kaul, repurposing of drug is now going on, just to cut down the trials and opioid. Now, look at the mechanism of beta-quin is quite established. Now, do you think if TB is not the only thing, where else it can be? People have tried this already, or you started trying this?
People have tried it. People have tried to use the applications for other disease, but usually it's always tough to repurpose drugs because they have been developed with a very specificity towards that particular pathogen. So we have to be very careful when we when we when we say that the drug can be repurposed from influenza into COVID, and we have seen all those stories and the noise about hydroxychloroquine, favipiravir, and things like that. So we have to really have that data supporting those applications. So we have to have those clinical studies done. We have to have those data out there to really to say that it has an impact. So unless until we have data, we cannot say anything about repurposing. So it's not the biological data, in vitro cell culture data, which is needed. What we need is really good clinical data. But we
Yeah, that's
have
a
seen
good. Yeah.
we have seen a diabetic drug which has the mTOR inhibitors, which have multiple facets in terms of ribavirin is one of the classic drugs which works across different indications for antivirals. So definitely, yeah. But we need clinical data. What I'm saying, we need real robust clinical studies.
Good, thank you. I think in a nutshell, I'm telling the participant that what Dr. Kaul is saying, data, validation. Every time you ask him, he believes only one thing, data. Otherwise, it's not good to comment on certain things. That's a good thing, Dr. Kaul. Sam, any more questions?
There's just one more from Dr. Prashant Singh. So can innovations in mode of delivery from injectables to oral or inhaler serve better for public health in a more faster way? As innovating vaccines are tough, but the delivery might be easier.
Oh, good.
I think that's a great question, and this is where there is a lot of innovation happening. Drug delivery is something where people are working day in and day out. Can you imagine if you have for rheumatoid arthritis, you have these antibodies which are given, TNF alpha antibodies, which are given very frequently, and people have been trying to see whether you can instead of giving them as injectable and you need a nurse and you need everything else, can you make these antibodies orally bioavailable? So oral bioavailability of antibodies is a whole field of its own. And definitely it has an impact on the costs of the healthcare. It has the impact on the cost of the medication. It makes things easier. So definitely, I think this is a great idea, and a lot of science is emerging in terms of the drug delivery devices as well as in drug delivery technologies.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Sam, no more question, I think, right?
Yes, I think there are no more questions. I just request all the participants to fill in the feedback form. And before we end the session, before we have the concluding remarks from Dr. Suwar, I would also ask the participants to open their camera so we can take one picture as a memory.
Because taking picture with Dr. Anil Kaul is something different.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Dr. Meenakshi, I think Dr. Meenakshi Munshi also there. Ma'am, namaste.
Namaskar. It was very informative for me. Although I have heard him earlier also, it's always a pleasure to hear him.
You have been a well-wisher of many of us.
Yes.
Perfect.
Dr. Kaul, there are many clinicians today in the audience. I could see there are more than 7, 8, 9 of them are doctors. They're also building their startups. So I think it's good for them to learn from you that how to build team, because they always go by one. You have to make larger team.
But one is also good. If the one is good enough to carry the rest of the team, it's also that's what the leadership comes, that you need one
Yes,
strong
yes.
person to pull the rest of the things together. Now, I think it's very important to have the clinicians.
Yes, yes.
Basic. That's what is missing a lot of times, and because they have the much better understanding of the disease and the medical need.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kaul. I think it's a great one. All of you will agree he's a different kind of speaker. And I hope we'll have more Dr. Call in the country who's promoting nurturing drug discovery and starting from scratch, building bedaquiline to the market. It's a great story we should speak about. We should learn from him. Thank you, Dr. Call. And we need your address from the Belgium. We'll be sending a token of appreciation from our KIT TBI TTO office, because tech transfer office is now getting active to work with many innovators, because we know drug discovery, there is not enterprise you build, but little technology you can go for tech transfer. That's what the team is doing it. And your insight was very useful for many clinicians, many participants. I thank you because you took your time from weekend. Hardly you get any time other day. So that's great for us. We learn from you. And I hope in due course of time, we'll learn more from you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
No, thanks,
Thank you,
Mrityunjay.
everyone.
Just
Thank
to
you.
add, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm part of the KIT TBI board, so
Oh, he's our board member. He's our board member, and he always brings a lot of things. He questions the board also. You have to deliver. That's a great thing, sir. Always he believes in deliverables. Thank you.
So we do have, we couldn't actually address all the questions. We had a lot of questions from the registration list. What I'll do is I'll jot down the questions, I'll send it to Dr. Call, and when I get the response, I'll send it to the particular.
He'll not have time. You'll not have time. But anyways, you should.
We should try.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye.